Good evening, namaste, welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to our beautiful Sunday talk. Welcome. Hi, Vinita.
Good evening to everybody here. It's so nice always as ever to see, everyone gathering. Though we understand that there is a wedding season also and people are a little busy. And with our YouTube sessions also, I think people have got relaxed. They're thinking, all right, abhi nahi, so maybe we'll watch it on the YouTube. But
Sure.
the energies of the live session, I always believe, are so much higher than actually watching the recordings and things like that. So I'll just start up with a very, very happy Children's Day to each one of us there and wishing the inner child in each one of us loads of love and healing. So, to those who may be thinking, what is this inner child? Inner child inside us does not refer to the childlike personality that possibly you would be thinking, but spiritually it refers to the person inside you who has been in existence since the time of existence, this birth, previous births, and so many births. And a lot of times, the inner child gets wounded, and in repeated patterns of our behavior, the inner child, the hurt of the inner child can be seen. The pattern of rejection, the repressed anger, the memories that actually lie of embarrassment, of accumulation, when possibly the unconscious mind inside you was hurt in the time of your mother's womb or any earlier birth, and the child inside us, we've neglected it forever and have not held it with so much of love and compassion that we could actually let it heal and start a new journey, because until unless we heal the inner child, we cannot have the proper growth, and we cannot really grow spiritually and emotionally. And as what I understand, Sujata also takes the inner child healing sessions. We've attended, some of us would have actually attended quite a few of them. And today it's such a beautiful topic that I would actually request Didi to begin the session by telling us what exactly is the inner child and how do we get to know that our inner child is wounded and it needs love and compassion. Over to you, Didi.
Thank you, Vinita. So, Vinita has given a very nice description of the inner child, what we understand when we, logically look at what the inner child is, and when we understand it, or when we read about the inner child from, all the energy work that we do. What is inner child? How she's just given you the exact description of the inner child, and actually, a lot of times people. They have certain issues, certain patterns in their life which they're not able to understand that what is causing it. There's been no recent issue, there's been no recent sort of situation or a trauma, but somehow there are fears, somehow there are issues which they are not able to resolve, and they don't even understand where they are coming from. And yes, in our energy healing, in our spiritual healing, we really believe that these imprints definitely come from childhood. As Vinita was saying, it is that it could come through, the time you're in the womb, or any time when you're growing up, in your growing up years. But even I feel that once we are adults, or even, as we go along 30s, 40s, 50s, there's always a part of us, there's always a small part of us which gets wounded or gets hurt in some ways, because that imprint is carried from the past. And in my practice, especially through the practice of SRT, spiritual response therapy, which many of you are familiar with and have, done that healing modality with me, we go into a specific inner child healing where we heal from the time you're in the womb up to your present age. At different ages, there are different situations or different imprints that get sort of imprinted in your subconscious. And as much as you try, you're not able to put a finger to what can really help you resolve or clear that emotion. So today I'm going to just try and put some light on this, as much as I have experienced, or as much as I have learned through my process of energy healing. But more than that, at the end, I also have thought of taking you through a little meditation where, if possible, we'll connect to your inner child and, try to identify those discordant patterns or those emotions that trouble you and do a little healing for them. So, to explain this in a very simple, in a very layman way, it's like a child, how at the drop of a hat, a child will start crying. They need something, they're hungry, they'll just start crying. And you have to immediately sort of soothe the child, a little baby, a toddler. So, what happens is that when the child feels that there are things that are happening which are not according to their, the energy that they are feeling, or they are feeling a disruption from the normal energy, a child will become sort of fearful or cranky or irritable and will cry, right? And the mother, like if you look at a newborn, what is it that they need? They need to be fed, they need to be, changed, their diapers need to be changed, and they just need to be cuddled or held, right? That's all that they really need. They want to sleep, they want to eat, and or basically have some milk and go off to sleep. um, and they cry when they are not held, they cry when they're hungry, they cry when they need to be changed. That's the basic thing that comes up. So at that time, sometimes when the child is not attended to, the child throws a tantrum or cries because he or she is in an uncomfortable situation, as basic as that. And as you keep growing in your years, it happens so that there are different things that you need at different ages, and somehow they are not fulfilled. And most of all, the need is for love. This is what I'm actually trying to come to. Most of all, the need is for love. So whenever a child or even an adult feels deprived of love, it's not just the love that you're feeling deprived of at this time. It usually comes from your childhood. And again, I don't mean to blame anyone's parents. All our parents have been well-meaning parents, and they've given us love to the best of their abilities. But sometimes that need for attracting attention, that need to be held, the need to be cuddled, the need to be loved, is not fulfilled. Or you're going through some kind of an emotional upheaval, especially when you're a child. You go through some kind of an emotional upheaval, and you're so small that you really don't know how to deal with that emotion. And that is very true for so many children I meet, so many people I meet. They've not processed that pain or that trauma that they experienced as a child because they didn't know how to. And for that matter, even their parents did not know how to deal with that trauma. Today we are well educated, and we are so much in connection with this energy healing and energy work that we know we don't want to, we say these things, or I see young children, young ones saying things to their little children, little babies. Even the expression of, repeatedly telling the child, oh, I love you, and you're really so wonderful, we are so happy to have you. I'm sure that, even in our generation, our parents and even we felt that, but we didn't really express it to that level. But now parents make it a point, and that's a very important point of counseling and understanding, that the child, or the person needs to hear this again and again. I mean, all of us would love to hear if somebody tells us, especially our parents, that we love you, and you're so special in our life. Anybody telling you that would make you feel so good. And at that age, everything is sort of expected from the parents. So if you go through some kind of a trauma in childhood, um, and it could be any kind of a trauma, I'm just not meaning like something like a bigger trauma, like an abuse or something, or a smaller trauma of just, something to deal with when a younger sibling comes into the family. The older sibling always feels a sense of, what they even call a sibling rivalry. They feel all the attention of the parents has now turned to this little child. And sometimes the older child is not old enough to understand or process that sense of rejection. So it's very important to go back to these imprints. Again, like even Vinita described it in a very, I would say, technical way, which is what energy healing or spiritual healing points to in terms of inner child. For me, I would say, whatever it is, more than the story of what created that pain, let's look at that emotion. Let's look at that emotion. And today I'm going to take you through, maybe by giving you examples, trying to make you understand, because now we really need to move beyond it. Whether it's trauma in childhood, whether it's inner child, whether it's a bad health situation, it's a bad relationship, it's a crisis in your office or your career. We need to now grow out of all these things. We cannot afford to allow any of these things to limit us in life anymore, whatever it might be, wherever it might be coming from. So really, when you come here Sunday after Sunday or listen to these talks, understand that I'm enforcing again and again that none of you need to be living with any of those wounds wherever they might be coming from, even if it is from a past life. You all have experienced a different state of awareness, which we can all go to instantly, and the pain will disappear. Yes, it could come up again, but we know, we are aware, sensible adults who know that we don't want to suffer. Whatever it is, we don't want to suffer. And so we learn to move ahead, we learn to move on with all these modalities that we practice. But most of all, that we learn, what we learn about is connecting to our breath, releasing it with our breath, and so on, tapping it out. So many things that we can look at, isn't it? So sometimes, we go too much, in fact, into all these technicalities of, okay, so it came from that time, something happened at 5 years, you met with a trauma, or you lost a parent, or you had an accident, or something happened, your parents separated. All these things are traumatic situations, but now I really believe it's just life happening. As traumatic, as sad as it might be, we cannot deny it. But do we really need to go into the story of what happened then, who created it, whose fault it was? We don't need to go into it. We just need to heal you of that emotion that repeatedly limits you in your life. And I've heard a lot of times when, people come to me for healing, they don't have good relationships, maybe with their siblings or with their parents. And they say, it was when my mother didn't love me as a child. She always, looked after my brother, or the preference was on the other sibling. So that child is just carrying that pain from childhood. And now, whatever, there are some differences over properties or finances, or some differences, and you go back to that childhood, that it's coming from that time. She never loved me as a child, and she still doesn't love me. She still favors my brother, whatever. So first and foremost, decide to drop all those stories. Just decide to drop all those stories, because they are actually nothing else but stories. You are feeling a sense of, say, rejection, say, anger, say, betrayal, or any emotion, anything that you feel comes up and limits you in your life, say jealousy. And all of you can come up with different emotions, and each one of you could be having different emotions. So whatever the emotion is, let's try and heal that. Drop the need to go into the story of it. And you must have heard a lot of times healers, including me, saying that we have to go to the root cause of it. Yes, we have to go to the root cause, but not to the story. The root cause, as in the root emotion. So understand that all these negative emotions, whether it's insecurity, whether it's fear, whether it's jealousy, anger, frustration, disappointment, worry, they all come from the emotion of fear. They all come from the emotion of fear. Take any negative emotion and see that it only comes up because of fear. Even something like sadness, even something like grief. Why does grief come out of fear? Grief comes out of fear because you feel that, oh, now I'm alone. I don't know how I'll be able to lead my life. I've lost my partner, lost my parent, lost my friend. Isn't it? It's not about the person who's really moved on, because they've gone very comfortably into the space that they need to. It's about me who's got left behind, and I'm fearful about how my life is going to be now without the presence of this person. You talk about anger. Anger also comes from fear. I'm angry because, I'm feeling things are not going my way, the way I had planned it to be. So I get into a space of anger, frustration, irritation. So all that we need to do is go inwards, connect to that. Maybe just go back into your childhood as far as you can remember, and think, when was the first time you felt that emotion? When was the first time you felt this fear? Believe me, it's not really coming from this present crisis, or the situation, or the anguish you're going through at this time. It's definitely coming from way, way backwards. So just take yourself back to that, and then let's begin to heal from that aspect. So I am going to guide you in the, before we end today's session, into a little meditation to connect to your inner child and heal your inner child. A lot of times when we do healing and say, people say, I really feel rejected, or I really feel I'm not loved, I would ask them, go back to your childhood and see, tell me, when is it that you started feeling that you're not loved? Or remember any incident. I mean, I'm going to ask all of you present here, think of any incident that you remember going back to your childhood, that you remember as when you felt, say, alone, fearful, depressed. And if you just close your eyes and do that, I'm sure you'll come up with some image of yourself as a child, maybe crying in a corner, being punished by a parent, being left alone, being scared by a sibling, or something like that. You know, that's where we need to go back to. That's where we need to go back to. And really start so-called releasing that imprint from that time. That's the healing that we all need. Else we just keep carrying it lifetime after lifetime. And again, in this lifetime, we can only remember that time where we, where our memory can take us back, or our conscious mind can take us back. But there must have been hundreds of incidents, isn't it, that you felt that in your childhood. But some leave imprints. So as far as your memory can take you, as far as back as you can go back to that one or two situation. I mean, there's always an image. I always have an image of, me as a child in my old parental house, sitting in one corner at one point, and, something had happened between the cousins or something. I remember just sitting on that, on that little veranda in one corner. I visualize myself as, I don't visualize, I see myself as a small child, in a frock with two plaits sitting there. So all of us, if we try to think of, we'll be able to go back to some image of childhood that we all have. And then we begin the healing from there. Then we begin the healing from there. And that's what really helps us to heal that emotion. That's all. We only need to heal that emotion. Nothing more than that. Because it's that emotion that keeps playing again and again in different situations in your life. Does it make any sense? And why does it play up? Again, remember that it only plays up because as a child, you were not able to handle that rejection. You were not emotionally sort of mature enough to handle that emotion. But that imprint stayed with you from that time because you could not process that emotion at that time. Even when somebody passes on, we usually say, don't cry. We try to stop the person from crying, right? We say, don't cry, don't, just sort of just try to be cheerful, try to be happy. But how can it be possible? There's somebody who's feeling a pain at the loss of, say, a parent or a partner or a friend. So initially it was always about suppressing your emotions and not expressing, because crying or expressing your emotions was equivalent to being weak or not being good enough. But now if you really see, all of us who are growing in our awareness and consciousness, and thanks to all this emotional healing and all the wellness aspects that have come in, we tell the person that please express your emotions, cry as much as you want to, process it fully in your energy, fully process the emotion. Isn't it? Don't we all do that? In fact, if somebody is numb and they don't give a reaction, we create a situation or we force that person to connect to the emotions and just let it out. Just let it out. Otherwise, you hold on to that and, it's all bottling up inside you. And as all of you have heard many times, where does it come out? It only comes out in the body. Comes out in the body as what? As all these various lifestyle disorders. Cancer, carrying resentment creates cancer, which is one of the biggest sort of diseases that we see all around the world today. Hepatitis, diabetes, hypertension, heart attacks, they all come from these suppressed emotions. So very important to connect to those emotions and fully release them. Cry it out. That's what we tell the person. Feel the emotion and just let it out. And I'm maybe going a little off the topic. That's why for me, it's very important to teach these modalities to children. The younger they learn these, say after 10, 12 years, now of course children are much smarter. If they know how to process their emotions, they don't come into this crisis at the middle of their life, like we felt at 30, 40, when we had, aspects of uh, all aspects of life really weighing us down. So if you really understand these emotions and you're able to process these emotions, it's really, really good. And that's why these modalities, especially something like EFT, the tapping technique, or Reiki, when children learn it as young as 10, 12, 14, 15, they firstly understand that it's okay to feel these emotions. I don't remember anybody telling me as a child that, yeah, it's okay to cry, or it's okay to feel sad, it's okay to feel hurt. It was like, no, you shouldn't be feeling hurt. But the fact is, I'm feeling hurt. I fell down, my knee is paining, or, somebody sort of betrayed me, didn't call me for their birthday party. Of course, I'm bound to feel hurt. Why should I not feel hurt? I'm human, isn't it? But what are we told? Don't feel hurt. And in that don't, we suppress that, because actually the truth is that I am feeling hurt, isn't it? I am paining from inside. But I'm told, no, don't feel hurt. Don't connect to that part of you which is making you cry. Okay, take a lollipop, go eat an ice cream, watch a movie, or take a chocolate. Or we even younger children who fall down and they cry, what do you tell them? वो देखो चींटी मर गई, or you just hit the door. What? Taking responsibility of your thing and putting the responsibility or the blame on the cheaty or the door or something else, distracting from the actual emotion. And that's where these pain bodies begin to accumulate in our body, because the child learns that if I cry, if I express hurt, I'm not a good child. But is that true? Not at all true. And as you keep growing in your years, conditioning has taught us to suppress those emotions. And that's why you just keep holding them inside you. But they're not going to go anywhere. Sooner or later, they're going to come out in some way or the other, isn't it? They're going to definitely come out some way or the other. So that is the wounded inner child that we say. And sometimes people just don't grow up because they're still in that little space of that pain that they hold. Again, I'm not blaming anybody, because that's how it's meant to be for them. In fact, for each one of us, the way we are, the way our life is, that's just the perfect way that it was meant to be for us to really accomplish what we are here to accomplish in this life. Does that make sense? I would like to hear from you. I'm going to unmute you guys, and I would love to hear from all of you, or anybody who wishes to share. Vinita, saying something?
Yeah, I was saying, but how do we know that we have a wounded inner child inside us? Does all of us have that, or does the patterns tell us?
So, through my experience, and I've been doing healing work for many years, but SRT in particular, I've been practicing for the last about 12 years now. And SRT talks a lot about inner child. And through my own energy healing work, I have studied a lot on this aspect. And I do feel that a lot of times the emotion that you feel is not coming from the present situation. So I'll give you an example. Let's say that there are these 18-year-old boys who've done some mischief in school and they've been caught. All right, they've been caught, their parents have been called, they've been suspended. Now, out of these 3 boys or 4 boys, one feels really guilty and is just like not able to deal with that guilt. One gets very angry to say that, oh my God, I mean, how are they picking us? What is the way they're behaving with us, or whatever. He expresses that in that whole situation, expresses a lot of anger. And it's quite common, isn't it, when we see that? Well, there's a third one who just doesn't feel anything and doesn't care at all, right? And there could be another one who's absolutely ashamed, not just guilty, but totally ashamed, right? So all 4 boys of the same age, having committed so-called the same crime, if I may use such a harsh word, have different emotions that they feel. Why is it that they feel differently? You have 2 children, you bring them up together in the same environment, in the same house, you scold them. One feels guilty, one feels angry, one doesn't feel anything, one just, dies of guilt. So obviously it is not coming from the external, isn't it? It's coming from an imprint from childhood. The way this child expressed whatever they felt was with anger. And there was this other child who connected with the vibration of guilt. So the emotion is coming out as guilt, right? So that is the whole, where is it coming from? Let's go back, back, back. And I'm also going to give you this other example, which I always give in my SRT sessions, that, there's a newborn child in the house. Of course, child is cranky, doesn't sleep all night. The parents are irritated in the morning because they are not able to sleep at night. They're shouting and snapping at each other. As children, whenever there is an argument or some discord in the parents, the child always blames themselves, that my parents are arguing or fighting because of me. This is a fact. This is something which a lot of psychologists will also tell you, because that's how the psychology of the child is. So this child sees his parents or her parents very irritable and feels, say, guilty, or feels, that, oh, my parents are rejecting me. And that starts to build a layer of rejection in the life of this child, who probably also comes from a past life where he was probably killed or thrown off a cliff or rejected in some way, right? So this child, whose body cells vibrate very familiarly with the emotion of rejection, instantly starts to feel rejection from the parents, right? Whereas there's another child whose parents are in the same argument, but the child doesn't feel anything. Child just doesn't feel any emotion, or is just okay with this fact, because that child comes from a different vibration, different vibrational background, where the soul didn't feel rejection or didn't feel anger at all. And there's a third child who begins to feel angry when the parents are arguing, So this anger, this rejection, this emotion that the child is feeling is nothing but a vibration, isn't it? We all understand this body mind connect very well. So this vibration becomes familiar to you. Let's talk about this child who felt rejected when the parents were, sort of arguing or getting angry and saying, oh gosh, this child didn't sleep whole night. Mere ko to naak mein dam kar diya. I'm so sleep deprived. Now they are not rejecting the child, but the child is feeling rejected, isn't it? Now, before you know, in a year or 2 years, there's another child that comes into this family. And the older child, this child, again feels rejected, because by default, all the focus and attention goes to this newborn baby in the house. As much as the parents try to give attention to the older child, naturally their focus is more on the younger one, the older one. So yeah, the focus is on the younger one. So the older one feels rejected. So another layer of rejection now forms in the subconscious mind. This child is more familiar with rejection. Another couple of years, this older child is sent to school, again away from their parents, and the younger child is at home. This child is not able to understand, why am I out of the house? Why am I not with my parents? Because at that time, what is it that any child needs? Only the parents. Their world is only the parents, isn't it? At a much later age, they might feel that, yeah, now I want something else, something else. But for a 4-year, 3-year, 2-year-old, it's only to be getting the love of their parents. The child does not understand, why am I put to school? Why am I sent away from my parents? And the little child is not. Another layer of rejection forms in. Something happens in school, another layer of rejection forms in. The child grows up such a way that he attracts a partner, or he has a breakup in a relationship, again feels rejected. His parents reject him, his friends reject him, and he even chooses a partner who he feels that my partner also rejects me. And then as you go on, you realize that this person feels, oh, my children are also rejecting me. So is it so that from the time you were born till the time you die, everybody in the world is rejecting you? Believe me, they all have better things to do rather than reject you. It's just the rejection that you feel from inside, the feeling of that little child who does not feel good enough. And what is this child comfortable with? The emotion of rejection. The same child, the other child who was angry when his parents said whatever as a child, is familiar with the vibration of anger. So any discord, any disruption in his life, when he's sent to school, he doesn't feel rejected, he feels angry. When the younger child comes in, he doesn't feel rejected, he feels angry, because the vibrations that his cells most resonate with are the vibrations of anger. Similarly, it could be hurt, it could be grief, it could be fear, it could be sadness, it could be anything. Because the child was not able to process that emotion of rejection or anger as a child, now they are carrying it ahead in their future life. And anything that happens, they will begin to feel rejected. They will begin to feel, this emotion will become more stronger in their energy. And that's how they'll probably be living their lives. But if at that age, the child is sort of, taught how to deal with that rejection, or given just a little dose of extra love, or reassured that this is not really rejection, the child grows up in a very, very different, with a very, very different energy, isn't it? So that is why when Vinita asks that do we all have a wounded inner child? If we all feel negative emotions in some particular emotion, we are definitely carrying a wounded inner child within us. And most of us do. Most of us do, because that's how life is, unless we are a very sort of spiritually evolved child from childhood. And we don't feel any of these negative emotions when we go through all these life situations. So most of us have some aspect of a pain body or of a wounded child within us. And it's just important not to deal just with that little child, but to deal with that emotion that keeps coming up, because there's a little child who was stuck with that and did not know how to process it. The person might have grown, but that little child is still, that imprint is still there in your subconscious, in your life. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question, Vinita?
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually also reading that, childhood asthmas are also related to how the child was feeling when he was in the womb, or maybe
Even at
rejection, I don't know.
even at birth, asthma is all about, see, asthma is related to the lungs. Lungs is all about life. It's all about prana, isn't it? It's all about breathing. Lungs give us life. If we stop breathing, we die, isn't it? So when we don't have that will to lie, or we feel very suffocated with life, that's when asthma happens. And a lot of times, even in the birthing process, which is supposed to be like the biggest trauma for the soul, the birthing process could be very, very traumatic, because you're in a nice cocooned womb and suddenly you're out into this big wide world with everybody shouting, screaming, so much happening all around you. So yes, definitely asthma is because the womb is one place where you're nicely protected, and you don't even have to make an effort to breathe, isn't it? Your life supported in every which way, and suddenly you have to do everything yourself when you're out of that. And sometimes when the mother is not feeling comfortable enough or not going through a good pregnancy, yes, it definitely comes from the time when you're in the womb. As so many other things. Like I remember I had done an SRT clearing with somebody who was asthmatic, and he was actually buried in those gas chambers during Hitler's time. So one of the imprints that came up, or the images that came up while I was doing the clearing, was that how they were all suppressed in those gas chambers and they couldn't breathe because they were gasping for breath. So there are a lot of those traumas that happen. Sometimes, I know about issues like intimacy issues when people grow up, when say girls grow up, they are hesitant to get into intimate, close relationships, sexual relationships, even with their partners, because they've had abusive relationships or some kind of an abuse in childhood. And the child did not know how to process that, may not have even voiced it, isn't it? We're all told to suppress these things. Where were they thought of being spoken about? Of course, it's very different now. But that's why, because of that fear of whatever happened as a child, even now when you think of issues with intimacy, some fear comes into you. And I know of a lot of people who may not even want to get into marriage because of that. And especially in these old, not old, I would say, I shouldn't use the word old, but a lot of conventional big joint families where you're just pushed into a marriage and pushed into marriage, which comes with obviously intimacy, the sexual act, everything. So these girls are not ready because they don't know. And even, a sacred act like intimacy becomes actually like a rape for some of them, because it's not been handled properly. Anyway, I don't want to go into it, but I know that, a lot of these things happen all around.
True. But Ree, how can we stay connected with our inner self? You know, like to heal, to maybe some affirmation. I'm not sure
Yeah,
how
so
do we.
you see, there's a very big saying, and a lot of times people say that don't let that child within you die. Don't we hear that
Yeah,
all the time? So
alive.
what is
Yeah,
there in that child? What is there in that child? Now, maybe a couple of years back, if you asked me, I would say very differently that, yeah, you're carefree, you're totally sort of not really bothered about what is happening, not so much so judgmental about how life is going on or what is happening or what somebody's saying, not saying. You are just living your life, dancing away like a child, carefree in a lot of ways, not weighed down by responsibilities that I have to do this, I have to look after my family. So that's basically childhood is supposed to not come with responsibilities, isn't it? But today I would want to take all of you even one step further. Actually, when we see a child does not feel separate from the whole, doesn't feel separate from anyone else, isn't it? I remember once we were going in the Shatabdi, and they give you tea and biscuits. They used to give you tea and biscuits, and there was this little child walking along the corridor and just picked up. Somebody was having tea, so he just picked up that packet of biscuit from somebody's uh, somebody's table, and there, running from behind, the mother came and said, "No, no, no, this is not yours. Keep it back. This is auntie's." So the child doesn't know this is aunties or uncles or what. They just feel it's all one. Till we actually start instilling in this and we bring in that sense of separation, that this is not yours, this is yours, this is your name. So when we say inner child, we mean, just for me today, I would say it's really going back to that space where there is absolutely no separation, isn't it? We never thought, oh, this is somebody else's lunchbox. If you're sitting and eating, you like something in another person's lunchbox, the child will just go and pick that up and eat, isn't it? You go for a marriage and the small child will just keep insisting that I want to eat a gulab jamun or I want to eat something sweet, because it's not wo kisi ki plate mein se bhi utha ke kha lega, isn't it? Because there is no separation for them. And that's the real meaning of understanding that everything is being looked after. Just live your life like a child. Of course, as we grow, discipline comes in, and there are certain points where we do need to sort of maneuver those things and teach the child. But for me, the deeper way of really explaining that live as a child or live with your inner child is understanding that there really is no separation between you or anybody else. And really living from that space, as the child understands that, okay, if I need something, I'll ask my mother, I'll ask my father. And the child knows that once I've asked my mother, it will just happen, isn't it? Do we even think how my mother is going to get that? Has my dad got his salary? Can we afford to get this or what? The child will just say, I want it. I just want it. That's how the child demands, isn't it? In the same way, we have to live like that little child, saying that, okay, God, I need this, or I want this, I really, really want this. And then just trust that if this is meant for me, if God, my father, mother, whatever you might like to say, feels that this is important for me, or feels that, yes, I deserve to have this at this point in my life, the universe will 100% present it in my life. And if not, that's just fine too. That's just fine too. Just fully trust that it'll happen in that way. Living with that trust. Otherwise, what happens? You just, the child starts crying, or the child starts throwing a tantrum that I have not got this, or I've not, received this, nobody is giving this to me, or we fall into a victimized space. But once you understand that, no, it's all coming from a higher space and there is no separation. If I'm meant to get it, I'll get it. Otherwise, I'll pick up another toy, I'll move with something else. I won't hold on to those things. Like a small child, if you scold the child in the morning, the child says, I hate you, I hate you. I mean, you just tell the child, no, no, don't say like this and all. Forgotten. At night, if you sit with the child and say, you told me you hate me at night, you hate me in the morning. Was it true? Why did you say that? The child will say she's mad. I mean, after I hugged her and kissed her 10 times. Versus being an adult, if an adult child, your 18-year-old child tells you, I hate you, I mean, my God, you get a heart attack, isn't it? So that's because now the ego has come in, that sense of separation has come in. So really just connect to that little child, absolutely carefree, joyous, knows that everything is being taken care of. God, universe, mother, father, everybody is looking after that, and live with that trust as a little child. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I saw you looking at your watch, Vinita, because I know we don't want to miss the meditation. So if anybody has anything to say, otherwise I'm happy to guide you into the meditation. Does it make sense?
Actually,
Let's hear something from you. Let's hear something from all of you also. It's nice to get some responses. Put on your screens and let's hear from you people. Neelam, let's hear from you. Your screen is on. Nandini, where is Nandini? Shalini, let's hear from you. Nice to see you, Dipali. And actually, these things are now helping us, especially young parents are really taking care to give that love and give that reverence, give that, nurture the children in that aspect too. Not just quantity wise, but quality wise. Isn't it?
yeah, are you doing inner child healing session anytime soon now?
I'll do the moment I have a little group, I'll do. I can do
It's
anytime.
so beautiful, actually.
Yeah.
Very.
Abhi, of course, I'm traveling for 15 days to Dubai. So anybody who has friends there, I'm having 2 free talks, as most of you must have got my flyer. Just talking about this, so anybody can come there in person, and they can hear me talking about energy healing and energy work. So if you have friends there and you have family there, just share the poster, and they just open free sessions for them to come. And then we have, like, I'm teaching Reiki to young children, I'm teaching EFT to young children, and of course there's a Reiki session and one-on-one session. So anybody who would like to be there or share it with your friends there, I would be really grateful. Okay, let's sit back into a little meditation. Let me put on some nice, easy music for all of you. Settle down, gently connect to your breath. Gently close your eyes, make yourselves extremely comfortable in your spaces. Shifting your focus inwards, gently breathing in and breathing out. And let's go into this little inner child guided meditation that has been created to help you manage difficult emotions or feelings inside each of us. Because this little child is always there within each of us. This little child that was once hurt unknowingly or knowingly by the parents or the caregivers or siblings or other adults, or even hurt by other children. It doesn't matter how big or small these childhood traumas have been, the imprints still remain buried deep in our subconscious mind, in our unconscious mind, and they may be influencing the way we live today, the life choices that we make today. They may even affect how we perceive or react to people or to situations in our life. This little inner child exists as a childlike aspect within each one of us, in our unconscious mind. And this little inner child often tries to get our attention by speaking, by, expressing through feelings or bodily sensations or emotions. In fact, the feelings of joy and excitement come from our little child, this little child within each one of us. When we get emotionally triggered, That too comes from our inner child. And this triggering is due to all the suppressed emotions, old painful feelings during those moments of trauma that the child did not know how to deal with. A lot of times when children get into addictions or abusive behaviors, unhealthy habits, it's just a way of coping with these unpleasant feelings. And this little guidance will help you to stay close to that little wounded inner child and address the emotion rather than escaping or avoiding the situation and getting into a space of self sabotage, self destruction. Let's try and sit with this little inner child who may be feeling angry, anxious, insecure, rejected, afraid. And let's give this little child your full presence so that they feel safe, they feel supported. So let's create that beautiful, safe space, a loving, healing space where you can meet this little child, meet this unpleasant feeling or feelings that are arising within you. And then, with your presence, with your love, you're able to deal with those and embrace this childlike aspect of yourself that has been wounded, unheard, reconnecting with love. This also helps this little inner child to integrate, transform, heal completely and wholly. And like I say, live life to the fullest. Just be gentle with yourself, connect to your breath, breathing slowly and deeply, focusing both on the in breath and the out breath. Affirming to let go of the story or the trigger and just for the moment focus on your breath. And as you come into the space of stillness, let's invite your little inner child into the space. Just see a younger version of yourself sitting next to you right now. This little girl, this little boy. Notice the age of the child. You could be a toddler, you could be a preschooler, you could be a school going child, or even a young teenager. Just take a moment to see this little child sitting right here next to you. And you could see more than one ages of your little child sitting next to you. Notice the clothes this little child is wearing, their shoes, their hair. Notice the expression on their face as they look up to you lovingly. Look back lovingly in their eyes. Slowly and gently embracing this little child, embracing this little one, just gently stroking their hair, giving their cheek a little gentle, loving caress, just showing them that you're here to offer your presence, offer the comfort, offer the support, reassuring your little one that you won't leave them alone. You could invite this little one to cuddle up against you. Just wrap your arms around this little child so that he or she feels extremely safe and secure. Just hold this child in your arms and breathe, letting go of the story, of the trigger, of the uncomfortable feeling. Just turning your focus inwards while holding your little one close to you. As you hold this little child within you, take your attention to the physical sensations that are rising in your body as a result of this feeling of discomfort that is created by any trigger that comes up in your life. Go to the physical sensation, drop the story. See what part of your body are you experiencing this feeling in right now. You could be feeling a churning in your belly, or a heaviness in your chest, a tightness in your shoulders or your neck. Look at this feeling. What is the quality of this feeling? Is it heavy or light? Is it deep or is it just superficial? Does it feel expansive or is it small and localized? Just take your time to tune into this sensation while holding your inner child. It could just be a time when your parents really shouted at you, scolded you, got angry at you, and all you felt was, oh, I'm not good enough for my parents. Breathe into the sensation that is created in your body and gently exhale. Just let this breath be that anchor that helps you to hold your awareness of this feeling and allows your breath to create some space in and around this feeling. An awareness that is kind of gentle, without any judgment, without any criticism. Move into this little awareness, this space of awareness that has no plans to fix or avoid or suppress or numb or resist or escape this feeling. An awareness that is simply curious. An awareness that creates a safe space to hold this feeling for your inner child. Like a nurturing adult, a nurturing parent, a nurturing older sibling, or a loving friend. Just comforting this little one by simply offering your loving presence. Just continue to breathe into this feeling, breathing out and releasing it a few more times. Acknowledging this feeling, connecting to this feeling, not dismissing it, not resisting it, not suppressing it, not avoiding it. Just with your loving presence and awareness, shifting into this feeling, feeling the intensity, the quality of this feeling, and breathing it out, just pushing it away, just letting the breath gently leading it out, just letting it go, holding space for this little child that you're holding in your arms. Look into the eyes of this little child now. Deeply look into the eyes and offer deep gratitude. Gratitude to this child for having the courage to show you this feeling. Reassuring the child that you will not dismiss this feeling, you will not push the child away feeling this feeling. Bringing your full awareness and presence as you look into the child's eye, lovingly giving the child a nice tight hug. Give the child one last deep embrace and allow the energy of your inner child to slowly fade away. Fading away with the promise that you will reconnect with your little one whenever he or she may need your comfort, your love, your presence once again. Feel the child slowly merging into the adult you, releasing any pain bodies, just gently releasing those feelings out, out, out with your breath. Slowly connecting once again to your breath, breathing in and breathing out, breathing in and breathing out, gently breathing in, merging, embracing this little child in your heart. Breathe into your heart center and feel the expansion of love, knowing that they're only feelings, only imprints which cannot hold you back. See this little child gently merging into your body. And take a nice deep breath up to your feet, slowly releasing and bringing your awareness back into your space, into your room, feeling that joy, that exuberance, that love of this little child, feeling that tight embrace of this loving little child within you, slowly releasing all that does not serve you, knowing that you're fully protected, fully loved, fully healed. Let's thank this little child. Let's thank all the forces that guided us and connected us to this beautiful part of us. And know that you can connect back anytime to this little child, embracing her, embracing him, and fully, fully healing. So taking a nice deep breath of gratitude. Very slowly and gently stretch your toes, move your fingers. Let's join our hands as we say and express gratitude to all this wisdom, all this knowledge, that we understand all the forces that bring us together to understand and live our life to the fullest. Let's ask this inner child to be with us and teach us that there is no separation, to live in joy, happiness, peace, laughter, dancing without any boundaries, joyfully, lovingly living your life to the fullest. Take a nice deep breath, and very slowly and gently you may open your eyes. Thank you, thank you, thank you.